another video or question. Hi, how's it going? So lately I've been thinking about social justice and censorship and free speech. Recently something happened where someone may or may not have said some things that were potentially offensive to some groups. And I think for one, the person who's being accused of saying such things did not have the intention to try to offend anyone. I know they went over what they were going to say or do at this public forum with several people just to kind of get a gauge of how raunchy or how offensive it might be. But at the event where it happened, the person went ahead and kind of expressed themselves. And for some people, it was taken as a personal attack, I guess, or certain groups feeling targeted or oppressed. And certainly that's something that I don't want to do. I don't want to promote oppression. I don't want anyone to feel oppressed. But then at the same time, I think about censorship and free speech. And yes, what the speaker said was controversial, but they have the right to say it in a sense. And I guess I'm kind of going back and forth between, well, do we censor the controversy to help others not feel oppressed? But then on the flip side, are we oppressing the controversial students for saying controversial things? And so I'm kind of torn at the moment about what to think and how to respond to the event, because I don't want the students' free speech and self-expression to be taken away, to be scrutinized, to be criticized. But at the same time, I don't want others to feel oppressed and offended. So I don't know. I think certainly context does matter, and I think in light of some things that the controversial student is being accused of, is in light of recent events that are happening in the news, and I wonder if it wouldn't have been such a big a deal if the recent events weren't covered in the news. Because if the answer is no, it wouldn't have been as big a deal if the recent things in the news hadn't happened. But then I think, well, isn't that kind of a bit of hypocrisy in a way? Because given the things that have happened in the news, like, it should be a big deal all the time, because these things are happening all the time, but they're not in the news all the time. And so if what the student said about recent news events is only controversial because it happens to be the flavor of the month, then what happens, the other, fraction of the time when this isn't covered in the news? If it's a big deal, when it's in the news, it should be a big deal all the time, therefore making what the student said, controversial all the time. And if it is controversial, then it should be controversial all the time, because these things that are going on in the community, they should be talked about. They should be on our minds. We should constantly have these things in the forefront of our minds. We should constantly be trying to work to end the oppression and the bullying and things like that. But it seems that it's saying certain things are only controversial now because it just happens to be all over the news. And if it's controversial now, it should be controversial all the time, because these are things we should constantly be thinking about. And so that's where I am right now. If anybody has any comments or questions or suggestions, I am more than open to them, because, again, I'm not quite sure what to think at this point. I'm not quite sure how to respond. And certainly I want to be there for my students who are controversial. I want to be there for students who aren't as controversial and who may be offended or feel oppressed. I want to try and be there for everyone, and try and and come to a place where we can understand um, how the other is feeling in art and self-expression, because at some point, yes, art is controversial, and if we try and censor someone or gauge the level of appropriateness by whether people get up and walk out, well then, why even make art? Why even have self-expression? Because people got up and walked out when they first debuted Showboat on Broadway way back in the early 20th century. People got up and walked out, and people got up and walked out when they started integrating African American artists and artists of color into the mainstream entertainment world. People would get up and walk out, and so it, it's hard to gauge level of appropriateness by that, because if that's the case, then people could get up and walk out on anything. You could get up and walk out of the room while I'm saying this because you disagree with me. And at the same time, my intention is not to make anyone feel offended. It's not to make anyone feel oppressed. Um, and so there are just a lot of things swirling around in my head right now. So I just wanted to put them out there. Maybe anyone has any comments or questions or suggestions about you know, what I should do, or any challenges to my thinking. I welcome them. So, yeah, rock on, people.